Hey there! I have a pour or a swipe that I did a long time ago, probably when I first started doing my paintings and or doing the fluid acrylic painting. And I have a festival coming up and I'm trying to get a bunch of paintings sealed and that kind of stuff, and some of them, you know, the pours just don't have much oomph to them, and so I wanted to take this one. I'm going to paint a black silhouette of a tree in, and if it looks right, I may add something else to it and I may not. It just depends on how the silhouette turns out and all that. I'm going to use DecoArt Lamp Black. I've got a little container here. And like I said, just going to paint in the feeling of a tree. And I thought about leaving some areas open, but I also thought about putting a quote from the Bible or something like that on the tree, just to give it some life. I don't know. So we'll just see. I'm going to paint the tree in first. But basically I just got on Google and looked at different shapes and different styles of trees. I just Googled tree silhouettes, and so this is what I came up with. But I don't have any particular shape in mind. I just want it to feel like kind of like an old oak tree. They're kind of broad. They're very reliable and dependable and sturdy and strong. And when you think of a strong tree that's been around for years and years, I'm from North Carolina, I think about oak trees. And it might be different in your area. But oak trees are very full of branches, and you know, a lot of times you cannot even see through an oak tree. You might get a peek of light every so often, but you don't really see much through an oak tree. And this doesn't really take that long to do, and this is something you can do with any pour that you've got. This was just a multicolored swipe, and to me it just wasn't interesting enough, so therefore I wanted to make something more interesting from it. So I'm leaving some areas that have some really bright colors that are popping, and I may or may not leave those spots of color to see. I'm not sure. But when you think of, Bible verses or whatever, you think of strength, and that's, kind of what your faith is based on, is power above us and the strength that He provides us and gives us in our times when we suffer, that kind of thing. I don't want to preach or anything, I'm just, kind of chit-chatting. Also, what I could do is, if I decide to paint a verse in, which would probably be smarter to do, is just come back and add those little bits of color that are going to show up in the background at the end, instead of trying to work around. You know what I mean? So also, this black is very flat when it dries. It does not have any sheen. Any of the DecoArt paints that are going to be in the bottles are going to be very flat and matte. They're not going to have any shine to them at all. This is definitely going to be one that I will seal with a gloss varnish, and to make sure that the colors pop back out again. But that's, you know, kind of what the neat part about these swipes are, is the wonderful colors that pop through in the cells. I'm also just kind of touching up areas that were kind of light with the black color. Really some cool looking cells, and they're tiny, and I know you can't really see them. I'll probably, when I finish, I'll probably zoom the camera in and let you see some of the close-up details of these little tiny cells, just so you can see how awesome they are, even though they're tiny. They have a lot of character to them. Kind of like little tiny snake skin looking cells. This actually, you know, goes pretty quickly. I'm just trying to highlight some of the neater areas that have the pretty colors. This is a number 8 Craft Smart. So this paint came from Michael's, and Craft Smart is like the cheap brand of supplies, and so it's just a cheap brush, but it's flat and about 1/4 of an inch wide maybe, but it's perfect for doing something like this. I love certain color combinations, especially like a lime green with a bright turquoise. The turquoises and greens together are such a beautiful combination. And I want to do another big swiping painting. And my next color scheme that I want to do, I saw it was a contest for watercolor, or no, alcohol ink members on Facebook, and I don't do alcohol inks, or I haven't attempted them yet. So I have it painted in, and I left bits and pieces, but I think if I'm going to do a verse or whatever, I need to just go ahead and paint in everything solid. So that's what I'm going to do. Cover up my little specks of color, even though they were beautiful little cells. And also, like I said, I made the shape up, so this is where I can come in and fine-tune the shape a little bit. I had put several on my phone. I shall run in the way of your commandments, for you have set my heart free. That I saw on someone's Facebook, and I thought it was just an awesome verse. Kind of speaks to me about my journey and having my heart set free. One way to do words or lettering is to kind of go up and down. That way you don't have to make it look perfect. And I'm writing this in with the pencil. I can go back, and when I paint it in, I can paint it a little bit different looking, but this just gives me something to go by. You just want your letters to be similar, you know, kind of repetitive. For you have set my heart free. They can even curve sometimes. I like that. So now that I've got the words, I want to come down a little bit so it doesn't look so close to the bottom of the tree. Rinse my water. So I think I want to put a little bit of marigold. A little bit of white. So it was funny, while I was sitting here and writing this, I was getting a text message from one of my YouTube followers, who's also a client of mine. And she just challenged me to do a pour and make it into a mermaid. So now I have a new challenge. This is jack-o'-lantern orange. I'm going to put a little bit of that in. So it's kind of a peachy yellow. I'm going to add a little bit more orange, I think. I need my tiniest brush that I have. This is the coolest thing. I think I got it from Hobby Lobby, and I think it's a DecoArt product. It is a bottle that you put your paint in, and it has like almost like a needle, but it's really not a needle. It's a very fine tip metal syringe kind of thing, and paint comes through it at the tip. So that's really what I need to use. And then it has, in the cap, it has the other end of the needle that goes inside, and that keeps it from drying up when it's closed up. This is the coolest invention. So I love that. And you can do any kind of lettering style. It can be just straight lettering. You can do it with the little dots at the end that is considered more whimsical. I don't know what style you would call this. It's got a little curl to it. I'm trying to put it on kind of thick because otherwise it will be see-through looking on the black, and we don't want it see-through looking. But anyway, I'm gonna start, I didn't think about it, but I'm gonna make some longer and some shorter. Different heights, and then that way it doesn't make you have to paint perfectly straight across. And basically I may have to go over some of this lettering again to get it totally filled in. But if I vary the height of each letter a little bit, then it's not, it doesn't require perfection, which is nice if you don't want to have to try to paint perfectly, which is hard to do, and it takes way more time. I do not have a steady hand at all. I actually have kind of a shaky hand, so I'll have to go back and kind of tidy up some of my little mistakes. Like I've got some drips, but I'm not worried. I'll come back with the black and fill that in. Pretty much try to keep your lettering around the same sizes, you know. It doesn't have to be perfect, but in order to look cohesive. Another Craft Smart, it says 3/0. So it's like a really fine, small point brush for like fine details. See, I want my T's to look similar, you know, that kind of thing. And as your paint dries, you can go back and touch up and add color. Just dropped a drip there, but I'll cover it up with black. So this isn't like really like script, it's not cursive. It's just a kind of a cross of in between that I like to use. So when I was writing this, I started here and ended here, which is like right under the U, and I really need to be further over. So basically what I'm going to do is just come to the left of where I wrote my letters. So I still have my guideline, I just have to think and move it over. And that way I can come back with the black and just fill it in where the other lettering was written, and you'll never know the difference. So I still ended up, because I did my letters a little bit bigger, I still ended up in about the same place that I had written the lettering in with my pencil. But I moved it over to help that side out a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is the good part about being hand painted, is there are imperfections with hand painting that you're not going to have with something that's just printed, that everybody can get at the store, that all looks the same. This is something truly unique that nobody else will have. Down here I'm going to do a little tiny PS. $1.19. $32. So you can see all the splashes and where the lettering is off. So what I'm going to do is just go right back with my black. Well, let me dry it first with the blow dryer. So I'm taking my black and I'm just going to go in and cover up all my little drips that I did. Areas where my pencil shows that I didn't paint over the line all the way. Or areas where I've got too much paint on the canvas with the lettering, or you know, whatever. I'm just kind of fine-tuning, and then I'll go back with the peach color and do the same thing I'm doing now, but do the reverse, is just make sure all my lines are filled in fully and they're not see-through looking and that kind of thing. So you just kind of go back and forth until you get it the way you want it to look. The main thing is you work your way down, because if you work here and then you come up here, you're going to put your hand in it. So you always kind of work your way down a canvas when you're hand painting stuff. I've learned the hard way. I've moved up to the top again, but like my hand is not on the canvas. I've got my wrist at the bottom of the canvas, and it's making, it's holding my wrist off of the canvas. So here I'm just kind of eyeballing to make sure that I didn't miss some areas where I left pencil. And then the areas where I accidentally went too far with my black, I'll just come back in with the peach and color and touch it back up that way. And the other key with these little small brushes like this is you rinse them and you make sure they go back to a fine point, because if you don't do that, the bristles will splay out and you won't have that little fine point that you need. So I'm going to come back over everything one more time. Just double checking the words to make sure I painted them in correctly. Sometimes you get painting and you're like, okay, make sure I spelled everything correctly. So I put the first coat of varnish on, and the first coat sometimes is not going to be enough. Like this canvas is like really porous, so you basically have to scrub it in on the first coat, and then your second or third coat is going to be the finishing coat. Here's another canvas I put multiple coats on. This will be the last coat, so it's nice and slick, and I'm just putting one more coat on just to show you on this one that you go in all directions, but you've got to come back really quickly and go in that one direction and take it all the way off both sides, and very lightly, so that you don't leave brush strokes. And if you put on a thick enough coat on that second or third coat, it's going to be thick enough to lay down on the canvas and settle out and give you a really nice glossy finish. And I wear gloves because varnish is so hard to get off your hands. Even if it's water-based, you really have to scrub and pick, and it's very frustrating. So, and then I take my Ziploc bag, today's date, and this is what my brush is going to go inside of to seal it up, and then I can use it for a week or two, using it to multiple coat mini canvases. So here's the final coat. Make sure the edges are all good. And then just back and forth to make sure we have a nice even coat and a very light touch. then the brush goes back in the bag, sealed up airtight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. And here's how it looks up close.